On September 6, 1992, some moose hunters found an abandoned bus in the wild land of Alaska. Inside the bus, there was a sleeping bag. In the sleeping bag lay the body of a young man. His body was very thin and weak. He weighed only 30 kilograms. Doctors said he had died 2 weeks earlier. The cause of death was hunger. Next to him was a diary. In it, he wrote about his journey alone into the wild. Later, his diary was turned into a novel and a movie. It caused great discussion around the world. He became a spiritual symbol for hikers and travelers everywhere. His name was Christopher McCandless. Chris came from a rich family, but he did not love money. He drove an old second-hand car. With a full scholarship, he graduated from Emory University, a famous school. If he wanted, his grades were good enough to enter Harvard Law School. He had the talent to easily enter high society and live a successful life, but he chose to give up the bright future that many people dream about. Chris donated all $24,000 he saved in college to a charity. He cut up all his identity cards. He did something many people want to do, but never dare to do in their whole life. He chose a simple life and walked alone into nature. In the summer of 1990, Chris left home without telling anyone. Even his closest sister, Karene, did not know where he was. He traveled west, moving toward Alaska, the place he saw as the land of his spiritual dream. In the desert of Arizona, he met a sudden flood. Luckily, he survived. After this, he completely said goodbye to modern life. He left his old car behind. He removed the license plate and threw it away. He burned all the cash he had. He said goodbye to his old self and to a life controlled by money. He gave himself a new name, Alexander Supertramp. From that moment, his new life truly began. To many people, Chris seemed careless and even foolish, but the real reason for his actions was his family. On the outside, his family looked rich and happy, but inside, there were many dark problems. His father was violent toward his mother. This filled Chris and his sister Karene's childhood with pain. When they grew up, they learned that their mother was not their father's first wife. This truth hurt them deeply. In Chris's heart, his parents' love for money and material things had made their family cold. The things that society calls success, money, and status felt like a prison to him. In nature, he finally felt free in both body and mind. In August 1990, Chris started walking on the Pacific Crest Trail from Northern California. At the same time, his parents realized they could not contact him. They drove to Atlanta and found that Chris had left his apartment 2 months earlier. They called the police. Soon, the police found his abandoned car. There were no signs of fighting. His parents felt a little relief, but they soon understood that Chris did not want anyone to find him. After leaving the Pacific Crest Trail, Chris met a traveling couple named Rainey and Jan. They were about the same age as his parents, but with them, Chris felt very comfortable. They traveled together, talked deeply, and laughed together. They understood each other well. Rainey and Jan felt like parents to him, but also like friends. Chris loved this feeling. Still, he knew he had to leave. His dream was waiting for him in the wild land of Alaska. Chris set out on the road again. Highways, mountains, grasslands, and sunshine were with him. When September arrived, Chris entered South Dakota. It is a vast plain in the middle of America. As far as the eye could see, there were endless golden wheat fields. There he met a farm owner named Wayne. On Wayne's farm, Chris experienced the joy of harvest. This strong and rough man became like an older brother to him. When Wayne heard that Chris planned to go to the wild land of Alaska, he bought him a hunting rifle and found an experienced hunter to teach him survival skills for the wilderness. Before the wheat on the farm was fully harvested, Wayne was arrested for trading illegal satellite television equipment. Before being taken away, he reminded Chris to wait until spring before going to Alaska. Without Wayne, the farm no longer attracted Chris. With the money Wayne had paid him for his work, Chris set out again. When Chris entered Colorado, he faced the most extreme natural challenge of his life. He used the check Wayne gave him to buy a kayak. Without a license and without any safety equipment, he rushed into the fast and powerful waters of the Colorado River. Chris overcame the strong currents and floated through one of the most magnificent landscapes on Earth, the Grand Canyon. Then he passed Horseshoe Bend, went through Hoover Dam, and continued south. On December 2, 1990, Chris entered the Sea of Cortez, also known as the Gulf of California, a place famous for having the largest variety of whales and dolphins in the world. He entered Mexico through the waterway near Morelos Dam. Then he dragged his kayak across the desert and finally reached the Gulf of Santa Clara. Chris lived in a rock cave by the sea for 36 days. Then a storm swept away his kayak. He had to make a new plan. He turned north towards the Mexico-United States border. Because he had no identification documents, he could not legally return to the United States. Under the cover of night, he secretly climbed onto a train, heading to California. When he returned to modern society, the tall buildings of Los Angeles and the fast-moving crowds made him feel strange and afraid. He looked at the well-dressed men in restaurants. Was that not the kind of person he had tried so hard to escape from? A strong feeling of disgust and fear filled his heart. That very night, he boarded another train and fled from the city of steel and concrete. This time, he was unlucky. Railway workers discovered him and beat him badly, but the sunshine of California helped him recover quickly. After several months of traveling, in December 1991, he arrived at Slab City, known as the last free place in America. By a strange twist of fate, he reunited there with Jan and Rainey. He also met a young girl named Tracy. She was beautiful, innocent, open, and passionate. She fulfilled every young boy's dream of first love. Together, they listened to the old man named Leonard tell the story of how he created Salvation Mountain. They pressed their handprints at the foot of the hill. Walking together under the sunset, they looked perfect as a couple. This was the warmest time in Chris's life. The family-like love from Jan and Rainey, and the sweet young love from Tracy were not uncommon in that desert. When people escape from the pressure and limits of big cities, their true hearts and deep desire for freedom are revealed here, nourishing the free desert. But this place was not the final stop of Chris's spiritual journey. That night, he and Tracy looked deeply into each other's eyes and sang one last song together. Farewell was common in that utopia, yet still painful. Sooner or later, everyone would set out again, searching for the next free harbor in life. Chris was ready to move forward once more. Sometimes, you just have to take the first step. Jan drove Chris to Sultan City. Wearing the hat that Jan had knitted for him, Chris headed toward the Anza Borrego Desert. In January 1992, near the camp at the hot springs in Anza Borrego Desert, Chris met a man named Ron. Ron was an old veteran who had lost his wife and son. The two felt close to each other from the very first meeting. For more than 2 months, Chris spent his days climbing hills to train his body, and most of the rest of his time staying with Ron. Ron taught him how to work with leather. In return, Chris, with his pure and honest heart, brought back Ron's passion for life. Chris carved the story of his journey onto a leather belt. At that time, he did not know that this belt would stay with him until the end of his life. At 3:30 in the early morning of March 22, Chris did not want a sad goodbye. He planned to leave quietly, but Ron already felt that the moment had come. He knew he could not stop Chris, so he had prepared tools and supplies to help him survive in the wild land of Alaska. They drove through the dark night until morning. The old man and the young man sat in silence. Ron drove Chris out of the desert. When the time to say goodbye finally came, Ron's eyes were full of tears. Through his blurred vision, he watched Chris walk farther and farther away. In April 1992, a train carried Chris into Canada. 2 days later, he hitchhiked to Fairbanks. After 2 years of traveling, he finally reached Alaska. With some simple food and a book about local plants, Chris walked alone into the wild land of Alaska, the sacred place in his heart. He crossed snowy fields, walked through rivers, and entered the area near Denali, the highest mountain in North America. There, he found an abandoned old bus. Chris named it the Magic Bus and began living inside it. Later, this bus became a special place for many travelers who loved freedom. Under white clouds, blue sky, and snowy mountains, Chris ran freely through the wild, chasing deer. Tears filled his eyes because he felt that his soul, once stained by society, was slowly becoming clean again. Life in the wild was simple and pure. He read books and hunted, but because he had little hunting experience, he usually caught only small animals, just enough to survive. One day, luck came to him. He hunted a huge moose. With this animal, he believed his food problem was completely solved. He tried to preserve the meat by smoking it, just as a hunter had taught him on the farm, but he failed. After a few days, all the meat went bad. He could only watch as wolves and eagles ate the rotten meat. After living in the Magic Bus for 9 weeks, Chris wrote in his diary, "When the morning comes, I feel that I no longer need to hide anything. I am moving towards something greater than reality. But my heart will never leave this place. It is as natural as breathing and as real as sadness. I will remember this understanding in my heart. Leaving makes me stronger. I carry a belief with me, a belief that will bring me back one day. As I walk on this earth, my wishes come and go. I was once covered with wounds, but now they are healed. I am moving toward the end, a clear and certain end." Chris felt that his inner change was complete. It was time to return to real life, but a strong and fast river blocked his way back. He saw the sign he had made with the hat Jan gave him and confirmed he was not lost. The river water had simply risen. He tried to check how deep the water was, but he slipped and fell into the river. After struggling hard, he managed to reach the shore. Then he understood that he could not leave. After returning to the magic bus, Chris was surrounded by loneliness and fear. Even worse, in the following days, there was less and less food to hunt. Long hunger made more holes in his belt because his body kept getting thinner. His mind also started to suffer. Even reading books could no longer calm his restless heart. Finally, Chris ate the root of a poisonous plant by mistake and fell down. Although his strong wish to live helped him survive for some time, he was so weak that he could not go out to hunt anymore. Even wild animals were not interested in this half-dead, skin and bones man. Chris's life slowly faded away. He and his soul, which had once been cleaned by the wild land, were trapped in the wilderness again. On August 18, 1992, that day finally came. Chris used his last bit of strength to clean his body. With shaking hands, he wrote the final words of his life. Then he slowly climbed into his sleeping bag and waited for death. People have always had two very different opinions about Chris's story. Some people blame him for being selfish. They say he did not take responsibility for his family and friends, and that he ignored the rules of nature. But some people love him deeply. His courage to break free from limits and wander freely inspired countless young people to follow their own path. As for me, I cannot judge him, because many times I have thought about leaving everything behind and going away to live freely, but it was only a thought. I long for freedom, but I do not dare to leave. Compared to Chris and many others who truly walk freely under the open sky, I am weak. So I do not want to judge him, and I do not feel worthy to judge him. In the end, let me share a line from the director of this film, Sean Penn. He said he wanted to tell Chris's story to more people because there was something shining inside this young man. In his short life, he experienced such rich and deep moments that it made him feel great admiration. Yes, it makes me feel the same. Subscribe me and see you in the next video.